About a year into our daughter being born, we figured out she had a stroke. Took the proper precautions, diagnosed with what we found out was she had a stroke at birth.
So at birth, so you guys didn't even know when she had the stroke?
No, not even, didn't know anything.
Man.
So she was technically stage 4 cancer after that. But the craziest thing is, like, by week 4, which is the craziest chemo drug, it's a red dye as they call it. Her pee is red, she cries, she's red, and that's the one that just kind of takes out the hair.
Welcome to Loudr, the podcast that amplifies your voice. I'm Sean P., your host, and here we believe in giving everyone a platform to get louder. Whether it's your professional journey or personal stories, we encourage our guests to speak up on topics they couldn't voice before. Join us as we make waves, elevate conversations, and empower you to be heard. Let's get louder together. So today I've got a buddy of mine, Sean Bob, and he has a pretty intense story. I think we all take a lot of things for granted in life, and one of the things that I personally couldn't imagine ever happening to me is if something were to happen to anyone in my family, and I would probably shut down at that moment. And so I brought Sean on today to kind of share that story with us and walk us through mentally, how him and his family made it through this, and I'll let him share his story. But first, welcome, dude. Give us some context. What do you do? Where'd you come from?
All right. So I'm born and raised in Vegas. Lived here my whole life. And how Vegas is, not a lot of people know this. I actually went to every school in the same street. I went to high school,
No shit.
grade school, college in the same street, as well as my mother 35 years before me. But anyways, trying to think. I would say most of my career I've been in real estate. Prior to that, I've been in, I was in the hospitality industry. I worked at a bunch of restaurants, this, that, and the other. Did construction, which basically taught me I didn't want to be in construction anymore. Digging holes wasn't fun, but the paychecks were great.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
A lot of times when people ask me, like, man, it's so hot in Vegas, how do you live out there? I'm like, well, I don't work outside. So yeah.
I think it's crazy for anyone who lives in Vegas that doesn't own a garage.
Yeah.
And I'm saying I do real estate, so it's crazy when I meet people. Oh, I converted my garage to be extra square footage. I'm like, so you get in your hot ass car to drive to work, and then when you get off work, you get back in your hot ass car to drive home.
Yeah.
That sounds terrible.
Yeah.
But some people value
their own, right?
Some people value what they want to do.
Right. Cool. So right now you're still in real estate now, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm still in real estate. That's where I met you.
Yeah.
I do probably a majority of what everyone else does in Vegas. I do fix and flip. I do wholesaling. I do some buy and holds, things like that. I'm part of some syndications.
Cool, man.
In the Midwest. So
yeah,
just trying to diversify.
So from what I understand, you're pretty busy.
Yeah.
You stay busy.
Yeah.
You've been busy. I mean, you've been connected in this community for a pretty long time. So within this space in real estate, I mean, connections are probably the most valuable thing that there is, right?
100%.
Yeah, right on. Cool. Well, share with us a little bit. So Sean's daughter, I really don't know the details of it. So you can obviously correct me, but you have a daughter. She was diagnosed with cancer.
Yeah.
And
I'm going to bring you back before that, which a lot of people don't know.
Yeah,
So
please do.
This is a crazy story that a lot of people don't know. So 2020, we had our second kid right before COVID hit. Thank God we had it before COVID because, as everyone knows, COVID was terrible.
Yeah.
You went to the hospital, you have to wear a mask, all that bullshit. Thank God we had it before COVID. About a year into our daughter being born, she wasn't walking. She wasn't trying to walk. She was just an aggressive butt scooter, as we called it. She was crawling a little bit, more so just on her butt, kind of screwing around. And by about a year and 9 months into it, we figured out she had a stroke. Took the proper precautions. Luckily, my wife's cousin works at UCLA Children's Hospital. We were able to go there. We got diagnosed with what we found out was she had a stroke at birth.
So at birth, so you guys didn't even know when she had the stroke?
No, not even, didn't know anything.
Man.
So it took about 2 years for her to finally start walking, which was amazing. We are the kind of parents that we try to stay ahead of everything. So before we even found out we had a stroke, we were physical therapy twice a week, occupational therapy once a week, just to get ahead of the curve to make sure that she was a functioning kid.
So was this your first or second kid?
Second kid.
Second
Yeah.
kid.
So
Okay.
first kid, totally normal.
Yeah.
Probably autistic. We don't know. He's just crazy. He's just a boy.
The reason why I ask is generally, on your first kid, you're a little bit more of a helicopter parent. And
For
so
sure.
on the second one, you're a little more laid back,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I could understand how, like, you may not catch on to things as quickly as you would on your first kid. Your first kid's like you're under a microscope, dude. Like you're watching everything they're doing.
100%. First kid, for sure. First kid, I'm saying we lived in like a 3-story house. Essentially, we had this tri-level basement house. I'm saying we were just like, hey, we need to get out of here as soon as possible. Our son's starting to walk, and this is not the house we need to be in.
Yeah. So
luckily, we got a rental, lived in Spanish Trail for a little bit, then I bought our somewhat forever home. But I would say, yeah. So, but going back to our kids, so basically, both my kids from right away. I'm saying I'm born and raised in Vegas. Going back to that, and I never wanted my kids to be in any public schools. I see the education system. I wasn't the best studious kid. I was more motivated making money versus anything else. First job at 14, made money all my life. But anyways, we were had our daughter in school. She was just about to turn 3, and 2 weeks before that, the teacher was like, hey, we feel something kind of hard in her stomach. No other kid kind of has this thing. Can you get it checked out? And my wife said, absolutely. So it's actually the day after my birthday. It's January 10th. And my wife calls me, tells me what's going on. I said, you know what? It sounds like we got a stamp card at Summerlin Hospital. Because the week before, we had gone there because my daughter had fallen and hit her head and had a pretty good goose egg on her head. So we go back to the hospital. We think nothing of it. And we get there about 3:30, check her in. We'd go back to the room. And I would say right away, we did blood work. And they said, hey, this will take about 2 hours. Then they did some kind of scans. And as soon as they were done the scans, they came back to the room and they were like, oh, hey, there's something going on. We're going to do some other stuff. So for the people who have had children, they did a ultra scan. They came with an Ultratech. There must have been 1,000 pictures they were taking. And it is what it is. And I was like, holy shit, like take it back. Like, what's going on here? So this is about 3 o'clock when we first got there. About 5:30, we then got the call of like, hey, we think there's more than just something in her stomach. We think it's something cancerous. We're like, holy shit, like take it back. I look at my wife and I was like, what does that mean? Say?
Yeah, like what does that mean at that point? Yeah.
And so then they said, hey, we're gonna have an oncologist come in, which I'm not really too familiar with cancer. Not a lot of people in my family have had it or been close to with it, seeing what's going on. I've had some aunts have breast cancer, but I was never like, hey, what's going on? Yeah. What do we do here?
What's up with your breast cancer?
Right?
Yeah.
So being your children, you're like, holy shit, like this is like really crazy. So yeah, right after that was happening, we then, my daughter looked at me and she said, hey, Dad, I have to go to the bathroom. And I said, okay. So I bring her to the bathroom and they said, hey, if she goes to the bathroom, bring this cup in there and make sure she pees in it. So I'm holding the cup for my daughter and she looks at me and she goes, Daddy, I have strawberry pee-pee. And I'm like, holy shit, she's peeing blood. So regardless of the teacher saying we need to check it out, we would have been there regardless that night. Now, doctors come in. I'm saying it's a little blurry, to be honest. I'm saying a lot's going through my head.
Yeah, for sure.
The first thing I was like, hey, I called my mother and I said, hey, can you grab our son Bronx? We are dealing with something at the hospital. We don't know exactly what it is yet because I didn't want to pre and say something wrong if it wasn't it. So then my mother picked him up. I went home. I put my dog outside to make sure the dog at least got in the bathroom, put him back in the cage, and came back to the hospital and kind of hung out, got my daughter comfortable. We got woken up at 5 a.m. by an oncologist and the surgeon and basically said, hey, this is what's going on. Your daughter has a Wilms tumor, about 500 to 700 kids a year get it. This will be my third this year. Here's what the studies tell you. There's plan A, plan B. Unfortunately, we do plan C. And as a parent, we're like, sure, I can't contest that.
Yeah, what do you?
So later on that day, it's January 11th, we're hanging out in the cafeteria waiting for the surgery to happen. And for people that don't know about hospitals, Summerlin Hospital is one of the best cafeterias. They have really good tater tots. And side note, they have really good tater tots. You have to get there before 10 o'clock. But just I've spent so much time there, like I know the systems. Good breakfast burritos. So I'm saying we were just sitting there. Luckily, everything went well with the surgery that happened. But basically, what happened is, if you can imagine, your fist is your kid's kidney, a little bit smaller, maybe a little bigger, and then the tumor kind of attached on top of it. So once they removed the tumor, she lost 4.5 pounds. So wild.
Wow.
So a kid that's already less than 30 pounds losing 4.5 pounds. She went from almost 30 pounds to just above 25 pounds.
Yeah.
So pretty wild. But then from there, we did more scans. So there's a thing called a CT scan where they put fluid inside you. We do have to see it to her daughter because she's a little kid. She's going to move around. So it didn't really help out. And
that had to be tough, man. I mean, I just kind of thinking about taking my kids to just your basic doctor's appointments when they're that young.
Oh, yeah.
Even like getting their shots or whatever.
Yeah.
And having to hold them down and, you know, when they're
Oh, yeah.
screaming and just, they don't want to be there. They don't understand what's going on. You know, that's.
Oh, yeah. I would say like, so this was just like phase one.
Mm.
And I'm saying after this, I'm like, all right, anything that happens, it is what it is, like kind of shit. But I would say from there, and then, so they removed the tumor. And then after that, they noticed there was a couple nodules on her chest. So she went from a Wilms tumor with also a couple other things added on. So she was technically stage 4 cancer after that. So you're stage 4 cancer. She had.
So how many stages are there?
To be honest, I'm not a doctor. I don't know.
Okay.
I believe stage 4 is the worst.
Is it? Okay.
What I've always heard. I've never heard of a stage 5 from anyone.
Okay.
But
Wow.
I think as like doctors like talk about it, it's like, oh yeah, we think it's stage 1. Who's to really tell you what it is?
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. But I would say from that perspective of like everything kind of going on, I'm saying it was the craziest thing in my life. And as is happening, I'm in the hospital. My former boss basically calls me, kind of demotes me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, holy shit. My kids got cancer and I get taken from a position where I worked so hard to go up the ladder to get it.
Yeah, I want to touch on that actually. It seems like when bad things do happen or unfortunate things happen, you really find out who's around you, because those sharks or the people that say that they've got your back, right, and just swear that they're your friends, those are the first ones to take advantage of the situation and make moves around you.
Yeah.
You know? So that pretty much happened to you like right away.
It was crazy because I'm saying I helped build a company and I feel like I had such good culture there with the people. There's people I obviously wanted to get rid of, but the former person was like, oh, they do X, Y, Z. They go to church meeting. Okay.
Cool.
We're here to make a profit. We're not here to hold people's hands.
Yeah.
But it is what it is.
Yeah.
I would say ultimately there's probably something going on that jealousy. I don't know.
Well, they say that in any position or like in any business, when there's somebody that's higher than you that's threatened by your talent and they understand, they know that you could take their position, they'll get rid of you right away. See, for me personally, like, and I would imagine that you probably feel the same. Like, if there's somebody that works with me or for me, right? I don't really look at life like that. Like, nobody does anything for me. A lot of things that I do, like Luis doesn't work for me. He works with me with doing this, right? You know, so that's kind of my mindset. But if somebody's better than me that isn't in the position that I'm in, I'm actually, I find that as like a huge strength, you know? And I really live my life like everybody's replaceable.
For
really,
sure.
in any position of life, whether it's your marriage, whether it's friendship, whether it's business, like everyone at any point in time, you are replaceable. It doesn't mean that it's simple if you are to be replaced. It doesn't mean that there's no pain or growth or shit that goes on through the process if you do replace someone. But at the end of the day, like if you're removed from something, it's only a matter of time. Time heals all. That like everybody's going about their life, dude.
Yeah.
You know? So
For sure. I would say, you know, it's pretty funny like talking about that is, have you ever heard of Tony Hsieh or heard of Zappos?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Tony Hsieh and Zappos, RIP Tony Hsieh, but he had this thing where there's basically no hierarchy. Everyone knew who the boss was and the managers were, but essentially there's no hierarchy. So for instance, like my team right now, I have door-to-door salespeople, and whenever they talk to a lead, I'm like, hey, I'm your partner. I'm not your boss. I'm your partner. I'm your business partner. I'm your friend. That's how we run a business here.
Yeah.
We're all sitting at the top. That's not how I want this company to be ran.
Yeah.
I want this company to be ran as, hey, everyone's kind of an equal here. Everyone does their part to help out the greater piece of the pot.
Yeah. I mean, everyone's got to feel that sense of responsibility for the growth and for the culture of your business. You know, it's the only way that you're going to keep it intact, you know? So, bro, I couldn't imagine, like, even, especially with us being self-employed, when I think of anything with my kids, bro, like, if I were to think right now, one of my boys at school playing basketball and falls and hurts himself, And that shit hurts my heart, bro. Like, seriously, man. Dude, how'd you do it, man? Like, seriously, to get that news with your daughter at stage 4, which you just said you've never heard of anyone having stage 5.
Yeah.
It's almost like, hey, there's a good chance that your daughter may not make it through this.
For
like,
sure.
I couldn't imagine, bro.
So I guess going back to like January 10th, finding out everything with cancer, I didn't want to know anything about it. I would say it was the hardest thing ever, like to call cousins, family, and stuff like that. Like, hey, here's what's going on. I don't want to know anything about it. I want you to know this is going on because I wanted my family to understand. And then about 24 hours, that's when I released it on social media. And I was like, shit, this is real. Like my wife was like, I was like telling my wife, I was like, you know what? I kind of want to like tell my friends like what's going on because I want everyone to keep bugging me, texting me this, that, and the other. And it just made it easier. I'm saying social media, as much as it is a devil, it makes it easier to do things in life.
Yeah.
Where I'm saying people are like, holy shit, like, I haven't spoken to Sean Bub in a couple of years. Holy shit. And people just sent me like gift cards. And I'm like, holy shit, people send me gift cards for what? Hey, this is for you. I know you're got a lot on your plate right now. Dinner on me. Taken back by how like generous people were.
Yeah.
Even like my wife was like, you know what? I went on this birthright trip 15 years ago to Israel, and girls that she hasn't spoken in 15 years reach out and say, hey, here's from us. Like, take care of your family.
So were you like that? Were you that style of person before that happened, or did that kind of open up your heart a little bit to be a little more empathetic to situations?
I'm gonna be straight up. I was never empathetic. I'm saying that's one thing. Me being a sales guy was never empathetic. Versus now, when I go on like a sales appointment, I would say I'm probably one of the more empathetic people. Like, if I'm in a sales meeting and someone has like something similar to me, usually they cry and hug me.
Yeah.
Like I'm saying, my last deal I bought off a person on real estate is the guy's dog had died because a coyote jumped off over the wall, and I said, "Man, I couldn't even imagine that."
Wow.
And he was asking me questions, and I'm saying, "You see me right now? Like I have a couple tattoos of my kids' names. People always say, "What's Brave Like Baylor?" And I said, "That's not an organization, but it's just like this saying we have for our daughter because she's going through cancer and just the bravest person ever." And this guy looked at me and just started crying, like, "Sorry, man."
Yeah.
And I don't do it to try to get the sale. It's just when you're connecting people, that's what it is.
That's
people
life,
want
bro.
real people.
Yeah.
People don't want the bullshit of like, look how many cars I have. Look how big my house is. Nobody cares about that.
And that kind of goes back to why I was really excited to have you on, bro, because, you know, my story is not relatable to this. You know, my story, there ultimately was a fix to it, you know? And so I don't want to at all make it sound like, oh, I can relate to this, because I cannot by any means. I remember, you know, the day before going to court, whether or not my kids were going to be able to move away or not, it felt like, you know, a part of me was dying. I remember the day that they left, I literally felt like a piece of my soul was like being removed from my body. You know, so in those terms, like I can maybe relate in the fact that like, I was in a situation where it's like, you don't have a fucking answer, dude. You don't know what's happening. Like, you just got the worst news ever.
Yeah.
And what's the answer, you know? And so my point to that is on social media, especially right now, and especially in Las Vegas, people are so hype and so focused on, you know, hey, I'm a Christian going to church. First of all, I believe in God. I have a great relationship with God. Yeah. That's my relationship with God. And within all of that, like, I don't believe that I need to amplify that to the rest of the world because I need other people to validate who I am as a person, right? Number one. Number two, there's a lot of people out here that like to flash what they have. And most of those people, if you were to take a moment to see where they're coming from or what their backstory is, they haven't had something like what you've had happen in your life. Yeah. They haven't had something happen like with what I've had happen in life. And so they think that these materialistic things are so damn important. And it actually, you know, and it creates, that's who they like, you know, that's who I am, you know, that's my identity. I'm so cool. I've got that, you know, and I'm not taking anything away from any of that. I want to live a very financially successful life as well. I mean, that's why we do what we do, you know? So I'm not hating on that at all. But when you have something that's happened like this that could take you down to your knees and really actually help you understand that, like, you're not shit, dude. Like, all the stuff that you're driving, all the things that you have, all the materialistic things, like, literally right now, go get them all. And let's try and, you know, shove them into a medicine to help cure my daughter.
Oh, yeah.
None of it's going to work.
No.
You know?
Yeah, but you also need to look at that guru mentality. I'm saying they're just the most insecure people you ever met.
Yeah.
They were bullied in high school. They joined the Christian church. Not saying the born agains, I'm more talking about. They joined the born agains, kind of joined that thing because they need some validation.
Yep.
They didn't have it before.
Yep.
So that's kind of like the crazy thing about just how it kind of goes down.
Yeah.
But I would say, so going back to kind of business and like things like that. So as this all prevailed with my daughter, on January 11th, it was crazy because my wife's CEO of the company, they've kind of dissolved and did some different directions, but the CEO of the company called my wife directly and said, hey, you know, I've never met you. I'm so sorry going through this. My wife with your breast cancer. We signed up your FMLA. When you're ready to take it, just take it. If you need an extra day here, just take it. Put it on the schedule, whatever you need. Like, I don't know what you're going to need. Like, and he's like, hey, you're going to get to some later on stuff, which we did no idea about of, hey, here's chemo, which we found out later. We did a 33-week chemo treatment for our daughter. First 12 weeks were once a week. Then after that, it was like 1 week, 1 day. Second week, 1 day. Third week, 5 days in the hospital. I've lived at Summerlin Hospital probably more times than most people have been to the hospital.
Yeah.
So I'm saying it's been a pretty wild adventure. But I would say I'm very fortunate that kind of I'm saying what I've built everywhere. I'm saying the culture I built is, even though I was taken out of a company and started my own company right away, people flocked to me. Hey, I know you did really good at XYZ over there. Here's how I can help you.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, like, even like some like the gurus, like, I don't know if you guys follow like King Kong. Mm-mm. He reached out to me right away and saw me. It's like, holy shit, dude, like, that's wild. What you're posting on social media with your kid, like, here's what I do. Can I plug this in your business? Another like great person that I talk to all the time is Steve Trang. He's like, hey man, like, whenever you start building your team back up, put in my sales program. I'll hook you up. Just put in my sales program. We'll figure out how we can help you get more deals in the future. Just like the genuine people. Yeah. Which has been a blessing.
That's huge. I think that's a huge lesson for anyone listening to this as well, is to make good connections, man, and genuine connections, you know? And so that's what I'm hearing from you right now is, and that's what I gather. That's what I got from you when we first met. You were a real dude from like day one. Yeah. Like, it was like the person that you were. I remember the first time we actually really like talked, it was at that event that I spoke with Josh. And before that, I think we may have been introduced, but whatever. And like, you were just real, bro. And you've been that same person all the way through. Yeah. And that carries a lot through life with people. And it's so important, I think, for younger people that are coming up within any business, especially if you're going to be self-employed and an entrepreneur. Like, it's really important for you to create those relationships. It's really important for you to be sincere about those relationships. And it's really important to be yourself, because the people who are faking it, like when stuff like this happens or unfortunate things happen, they don't get the love and support that you got, because those people that they built everything with, like, they're not even really connected to them. So it's kind of like, they're like, oh, that's a bummer, you know, where in your case, you know, everyone felt like an actual connection with you because you're real, dude. Yeah. So mad props to that, man. So going through the process with your daughter, I mean, you just mentioned the process of chemo. I mean, bro, the emotions going through that is
I would say that. So right now, we are trying to think. Our last chemo treatment was like September, like mid-September. Anyways, about a month ago, we did our first scan, which was everything's good. But let's kind of like Quentin Terry, let's backtrack. I remember like the first or second time she had chemo done, she looked at me and my wife and she's like, Daddy, I feel itchy. And I looked at my wife and I said, you feel itchy? What would a parent do? Benadryl. Yeah. Because I'm saying, okay, maybe an allergy reaction. Tell the doctor that, like, no, you do not do Benadryl. That's not what you give this kid right now. She feels itchy because I'm saying she's not used to the tingly drug inside of her. Because essentially that's what she was like telling us about. But the craziest thing is like by week 4, which is the craziest chemo drug, it's the red dye as I call it. Her pee is red. She cries, she's red. And that's the one that just kind of takes out the hair. And I would say that's probably like the turning point of like with my daughter, like, holy shit, this is like real. Her hair starts clumping out. I convinced her brother, who her brother now is deathly scared to get haircuts because I shaved both her heads. This kid could have negotiated like an airplane. I'm like, whatever you want, dude. Yeah. And I've traumatized my son from this whole experience, which is the worst thing ever as a parent. But you know what? I'm willing to take a couple things here and there. Yeah. He is, I wouldn't say he'll forget this experience, but like my daughter, I'm saying she won't forget any of this stuff. It's crazy to think about all the things she brings back up. And I'm saying she had just turned 3 about 7 days after this all happened. Like that was the other crazy thing. As this all happens, we have a birthday party planned for the following weekend. And like, I called my buddy Casey Ryan. I'm like, hey, Casey, like, so I can't have you come over on Saturday. He's like, oh, what's up, dude? I was like, so we're in the hospital. We think our daughter has cancer. He's like, holy shit, bro. Like, what do you need? Yeah. And like the next morning, his brother-in-law, Josh Galindo, called me. He's like, hey, man, I know we're acquaintances, but like my wife went through this. Let's talk. And I'm saying he was such a good person I talked to about the whole experience. Yeah. Which I'm saying he helped me out a lot. Other friends I talked to, like, can I come to the hospital and see you? I'm like, no, not right now. Like, yeah. Because I'm saying that's most of my like support group, the one to come see me. Yeah. Like my best friend sent flowers and balloons to the hospital. And he's like, hey, did you get the balloons? I'm like, no. He's like, fuck, dude, I'm going to call them back. And I was like, apparently you can't have a helium here, bro. He's like, oh, shit, I didn't know. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. What was the scariest point going through that? Did you ever think you were going to lose your daughter? Other than like the initial scare? Night one for sure. Night one, I was calling people that I had to talk to, like tell them about it. And then I probably shouldn't have taken a gummy because I wanted to relax and stuff like that. And I'm just saying I had like the craziest dreams that night. Like, did I lose my daughter? What am I going to do? This, that, and the other. And like pleading with God, almost like take my life kind of shit. Yeah. And I would say the next day, talking to the oncologist, and he looked at us and he's like, hey, 500 to 700 kids get this year. Here's kind of what happens. Here's what stage she's in. Here's how we're going to do it. He goes, about 6.5 months should be done. So and that had to be like a little comforting to know that it wasn't super rare. And you're like, oh, we've seen one of these never, so was that a little comforting? So childhood cancer is a little bit different from adults. And the reason I say this is like my dad's right now going through neck cancer. He has some kind of bulge in his neck. So they're doing radiation 5 days a week for 7 weeks. And he's doing chemo once a week. And I talk to my dad all the time, like, hey, what's going on? He's like, I sound like I'm losing my vocal cords. And I'm like, what's going on? He goes, the radiation that just hitting it just hurts so bad. And I'm like, hey, can I come over? He's like, no, I don't want you to see me this way. Versus my daughter, chemo treatment, we go back home, play with toys. Maybe she gets a little tired. Yeah. The worst thing probably of the first, if we started chemo, I'm trying to think back in like February of 2023 till probably the end of the year. When I say the end of the school year. So in June was probably the worst part because our son was still in school. He would get sick. He'd bring home our daughter, some kind of cold. Yeah. Then she would get sick. Her temperature go through. And the one thing is every time a child with going through chemo that has a port, they have to go to the hospital right away. As soon as their blood or their temperature goes up to a minimum of like 101, they go right to the hospital. Like my buddy Luis, his wife was posting about their son had temperature so high. I'm like, holy shit, dude, I'd be at the hospital like already. Yeah. Versus I'm saying, kids, you don't have to. She has a metal port in her body, which is the reason why. Versus if you have a fever at home, you're going to do a cold bath, you're going to do a cold press, you're going to do ice packs. Yeah. That'll cure the fever. How'd your son handle all this? How'd you guys how'd your son handle all this? Like, how did he handle like when he would come home? Was he like a little more maybe sensitive to like, man, was he feeling, do you think he ever felt any guilt? Like, man, maybe I got her sick or anything like that? I think it was more like, I would say beginning of it was like a little more jealousy. Like, why is everyone so much attention? She was getting a lot of attention. Yeah. Yeah. Which I don't blame him. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they're kids, bro. Yeah. Like they live off of attention. Yeah. So like right away, my wife's like, oh, Bronx wants to have a space party. So I don't even know how much he spent. I decorated my garage like you think it was like outer space. I had black lights. I had glow sticks. I had so much shit that some decorator came in and just like made it the garage.
Yeah.
This like space thing for him.
Yeah.
But I would say like he also looked at it as like, and I think that the good thing that people do with cancer is there's so much that people just give for it. And when I say people give for it, like one of my good friends, Craig Tan, when I was at the hospital, there's a foundation called Kindness Conquers, and he had donated money. He's like, hey, I'm good friends with Sean Bub. Send this to Sean Bub. And I have toys for my daughter, for my son. So they're giving toys to both of them. So I'm not saying cancer is a good thing, but at least kids will get through it because they're so spoiled.
Yeah.
Like I have so much shit in my house that some of it I just keep donating back to other people.
Yeah.
Like we had set a birthday party for my daughter, and like she is so much smarter than my son. This little girl's got fucking inventory. Like I got this toy, that toy. When's this toy gonna come out of the closet kind of shit? Versus my son, like had a birthday party, doesn't remember anything he got, and I've been donating that shit to other people. Like here you go.
Yeah.
That's wild. But I would say he was definitely very like jealous at the beginning, but then he realized, hey, my sister's sick, and like as a parent, the craziest thing ever is he didn't see her for almost a week because she was in the hospital right away. So when he finally got to see her, like the hug of like a brother and sister, like, just like taken back.
Yeah.
But also our kids are best friends.
Yeah.
Like watching my daughter play with my son is the greatest thing ever. They don't fight that much. Of course they get annoyed with each other, but it's crazy to see how much they actually love each other.
Yeah.
And like, even if like you're out and about, like someone forgets to give Bailey something, hey, Bailey needs that too. Like he takes care of her
back. Yeah. What's the age difference?
21 months. So just under 2 years.
Dope. So
Yeah.
they're always going to be close. That's
Always.
cool. Well, hopefully,
Yeah.
as they get
Always.
older, they'll.
But it's also funny because like he's got like more friends because he's a little bit older.
Mhm.
He's in like different schools now. And one of our good friends has a son named Jackie, and Jackie always comes over, and our daughter Bailey goes, I don't like Jag. And I'm like, why don't you like Jackie? He takes Bronx away from me. And I'm like, you see how jealous she gets now.
Yeah. Yeah. So going through this, what do you think your biggest takeaway was? Going through this whole experience within, as a man, right?
Yeah.
Supporting a family, concentrating, focus. Well, by the way, happy belated birthday!
Thank you.
You hit the 40 club as well,
Dude, it sucks.
I'm 41 this weekend, so
Nice.
yeah,
Super Bowl Sunday?
yeah, dude.
Nice.
So it's crazy, man. Everyone's throwing like this big ass
Party
like
for you.
football event here in Vegas
Go
for me.
sports.
Yeah, man, but I can't go. It's weird. I thought they'd invite me, but nobody got me a ticket. But
Yet.
anyhow,
Yet.
right? Yet. So I mean, as a man, you're the rock, dude. Like you have to be strong. You have to, especially in the face of your daughter, which I don't have I have 3 stepdaughters, and they came into my life when they were older.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you right now, bro, if I had a daughter that was young in that situation, like she would probably bring me to my knees with almost anything that she
For sure.
wanted, So having to be strong with your wife, your son, your daughter, business, everyone around you. Like, what was your biggest takeaway, dude? Like that you can maybe share with someone that would go through, because this isn't like, hey, I just lost my business type of thing. Like this
Yeah.
is like, I almost just lost my fucking kid, almost died, and I had to carry her through this gruesome, disgusting, difficult process. My whole entire family, because I'm sure there were nights and days where you had to freaking pick your wife up and be like, look, let's keep going. Maybe vice versa.
I'm going to say vice versa. My wife was much stronger than me because she's dealt with cancer before because her father passed from it. So she was very fortunate to be there for all the final days. And it kind of like, I'm saying it was very stressful in the beginning when it first all kind of played out. And I would say I've definitely leaned on my wife a lot more to kind of help me through everything. And I would say through all the process as well, we ended up seeing a counselor. Like, hey, let's talk about like what's going on at home. Because I'm saying we're both stressed.
Yeah.
But I'm saying at the end of the day, we're only focusing on 2 people. We're like, hey, we don't really, it's not necessarily we don't care about each other, but it's like, hey, we're just focusing on our kids.
Yeah.
Let's make sure our kids are taken care of and then go from there.
Yeah.
But I would say business wise for her, she's very fortunate. The company she worked for, she basically just time slotted, hey, chemo's Tuesday at 11 to 1. I can't take meetings. Every time after that, perfect.
Yeah.
And her boss, basically, I'm saying greatest person. I'm saying he just whatever she needed, took care of it. He was in Vegas at the end of last year, or actually in Vegas, I think beginning of the season for the Golden Knights this year. And I got us tickets. He's like, holy shit, these are good tickets. I'm like, bro, you like kind of helped out my wife a lot. Like this is the least of my concerns.
Yeah.
Plus it's helped me with data and stuff like that. But I would say for business wise, I've always been a grinder. I'm saying I know the business very well. And of this last year, I'd say it actually turned out to be one of my best years in real estate. And not necessarily monetary wise. I'm saying my kids were healthy at the end of the year, which was perfect. My retail business, which is helping out buyers, sellers, was the craziest I've ever had it. And I was like, holy shit. Like looking back at my numbers, I'm like, oh shit, I did 32 transactions off market. I did 19 transactions on market. I'm like, man, I don't remember doing any of this stuff. I just remember focusing on my kids. That's it.
Yeah.
I remember trying to, and I'm saying right away, I posted about, it's almost been about a year ago that I quit working for the company. And I would say the biggest compliment I got is what you're saying earlier. People have kind of flocked to me. All the gurus want to know about the shadows behind where I worked at, which obviously a lot of people probably question that. And then I would say the other half that called me were like, hey, I got XYZ for business. Can you help me implement this? And I'm saying people would have me help them with their business essentially. Yeah. Other than that, I would say Luis, who's actually in the room with us, Luis, I reached out to him and was like, hey, I need some office space. And he's like, fuck it. Let's just build part of the office space in my office. It was like the greatest startup. Yeah. And then at the same time, towards the end, I was like, you know what? I want to go somewhere closer. It's kind of cold in here. I'm in the back of an office with like no AC kind of shit. Yeah. And at the same time, he's like, yeah, this isn't really, dropshipping isn't working for me. I'm going to figure out something too. But it was a good starter where I got 4 employees to work for me. They were making deals for me. One ended up actually working for a buddy. The others kind of left off. One went back to a business he was already in, which was cool. And then from there, I was like, all right, what else can I start? So I started a door knocking team. And that was more my focus on it as well. But another big player came in town and kind of knew my background, knew what I did. So I grouped with another a big player that came in town for TV commercials and kind of helped him automate his business to make deals happen. So he basically helped out me make a good profit as well as him as well. Yeah. But that's just how business is. I'm saying you're always going to pivot and do things. Yeah. You can't just sell hammers. People always don't want hammers. You're going to have to sell screwdrivers or whatever it is. Yeah. You pivot in life. So do you think going through this too made your marriage stronger? You and your wife a little bit closer, or kind of open things up there? No, I don't know. I wouldn't say it made it stronger, but I'm saying I've always loved my wife. Like I'm saying, I met my wife. My wife and I have had the craziest like story of how it happens. I met her at 31, and every year something happened. I met my wife at 31, 32 we're engaged, 33 we're married, 34 we had our first kid, 35 we bought a house, 36 we had our daughter, and then 37. I think it happened on 37. 37 we fed our daughter a stroke. 30 I forget what happened. 39 we fed our daughter cancer. Now I'm 40, so we'll see what happens this year. Hopefully it's not your dick stops working. I don't think so. I go to a I'm on TRT. I have the highest libido anyone could ever think about. I have no hair for a reason. I have the highest testosterone you can imagine. I just look at the guys with hair and say, man, low T. Low T. But I would say everyone that sees me with my wife, I'm saying like I just got back from 40th birthday party. I don't know if you can see it. I not tattooed. I did sexy Lexi. I also had a shirt made for her, which was too small. I didn't get to wear on the trip, but everyone knows how much I love my wife. Yeah. Like she is the best thing ever that's ever happened to me. She got me out of like kind of being a player to actually just like settling down, and I wanted a family. So before I met my wife, or when I started dating my wife, I looked at my mom and said, hey, I can see myself marrying this girl, but here's the thing. If I have kids with her, I need you to be my nanny. So I negotiate everything in life. so I got free health or daycare for my mom for both kids first years, which is great. Nice. So it saved me a lot of money, but nice. So kind of in closing, if I hope that what somebody can gather from all this really is that they need to really focus on making genuine connections, because anything at any point in your life could happen. You know, and if your life is genuine and filled with intention and gratitude, then, you know, that's going to carry you through these hard times, whether it's your kid, you know, coming into something as terrible as this, or, you know, it could be a number of other things, you know? So
I appreciate you sharing your story, bro. I really do. I'm glad and excited to see where you go from here as well.
Yeah.
Where can everybody find you professionally? And then also, is there like an organization, or is there something that people can donate or give to for cancer research, or even for your daughter?
Yeah. I would say, so a couple of things that I'll kind of end with. Luckily for kids with cancer, it's a playbook. And that's one thing I was going to try to say earlier. And the reason I say this, the first thing that happened is when we got this diagnosed, I reached out to a person that also had the same thing that my daughter had, because I wanted to talk to someone. He's like, dude, this is the craziest thing ever, bro. Think of a playbook playing sports. Page 35, Wilms tumor. Here's how you correct it. Versus an adult, here's a trial I'm trying to get into. But I would say, yeah, charities you're talking about. We've grouped up with a charity called Kindness Conquers. My wife always gives back for them. She goes to
Kindness Conquers?
Kindness Conquers at Instagram.
Okay.
At Kindness Conquers. She gives back, and so if you follow me, you'll see me tag them all the time. My wife is at the hospital for decorating for Valentine's Day this last week. She'll be doing probably St. Patty's Day next month. Whatever it is, she's always giving back. She went there to do root beer floats for all the kids in the rooms, like whatever it is. And like even our daughter wants to go there. We're like, hey, Baylor,
cool.
You can't go there all the time, but we can try to sneak in here and there.
Yeah.
And I would say, yeah, anyone looking for me professionally, I'm at Sean Bob Rob, spelled like Sean Connery. If you're that old, you actually know how to spell that. Or Sean Penn, if you're younger, SEANBOBROB. But yeah, I would say, dude, anyone reach out to me. And like the craziest thing is about talking about cancer, kind of this episode, a guy that I kind of mentored at the beginning of me getting out of my last position, his wife went through cancer. So he was like, man, this is crazy that my wife had this happen and your daughter had this happen, and you're helping me out with everything. Like, thank you so much for always giving back and things like that, which has been awesome.
Everyone's connected for a reason, man.
Yeah.
We all are intertwined some way or somehow for an absolute reason. I genuinely believe that. So, bro, I really appreciate you, man.
Absolutely.
And I wish you the best, and looking forward to just seeing all the progress and success, not just with you, but I know you share a lot of stuff with your daughter on the gram as well. So thanks, brother.
All right, man.
Appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
All right, cool.
Later.
That wraps up another empowering episode of Loudr with Sean P. I want to express my gratitude for joining the conversation. Remember, your voice matters, and together we're creating a symphony of impactful stories. If you enjoyed today's episode, I want to hear from you. Please subscribe, share, leave a review, and let's continue making some noise. Until next time, stay empowered and stay loud.